What's happening, my Anodized friends? I am Chef Steve Anderson. You are checking out the Anodized Chef. Thank you for that. Today we are going to do something that you find on the menu in a lot of restaurants, and it's done a lot of different ways, but we're going to give you the anodized way. So stay with us. We're going to make shrimp scampi. It's going to be awesome. Check this out. So shrimp scampi is done many different ways. We're going to show you the way we do it, like I said in the intro, and it's actually pretty straightforward. So we're going to go right through the ingredients. What I've got here is I've got a half a pound of linguine. We've cooked that al dente. It's still got a little bit of a bite to it, so that's good. When we reconstitute it in that sauce, it'll come back to life. But one of the things that I like to do on my show, and in real life too actually, is when I cook pasta, I cook it to al dente, which means to the tooth in Italian, and it's got a little bit of firmness to it when you bite into it, but it's still cooked, it's not raw. But what I do is I'll put it in the strainer, but I won't add any water to it, because what's going to happen is the heat in the water that's on that now will evaporate. It'll cook the pasta just a little bit more, but the most important thing about it is the pores don't close on the noodles. So when you add it to the sauce, it's going to act like a sponge to that sauce, and all the flavor is going to get right into that pasta. So it's very important. That's a step that I do all the time. Unfortunately, you know, when you're in a restaurant, you're cooking a lot of pasta to be served at different times, you have to cool it down. But if you're going to do this all in one shot, this is the way I recommend doing it, because the pasta, like I said, will absorb a lot more of that flavor. So we've got a half a pound of linguine, and it's like I said, it's al dente cooked. Then we'll go right through. I've got some fresh lemon here. We're just going to squeeze just about a tablespoon or so right into our sauce. I've got a quarter cup of fresh Parmesan. I've got a quarter cup of fresh shredded Asiago. I've got some chiffonade basil. I've got some chopped parsley here, and I have some minced garlic. Then I also have some San Marzano tomatoes on the sideline. I also have some sliced lemon wheels. That's more or less a garnish. Then I've got the edge that we're going to sprinkle in at the end. I've got one stick of butter that's already pre-melted down, and that's the foundation of our sauce. Now, I know, butter, you know, is there any substitution? I really don't think so. As it is now, we're already going to cut it with some olive oil to bring a little bit of nutrition and cut the bad fat content down. But you got to have some kind of butter in there to make this work. It's an authentic flavor that comes through in the scampi. You got to have it. So a stick of butter, and again, it's going to go. This what we're doing here is going to feed about 3 people. So a stick of butter cut 3 ways. It's a lot, but it's not too bad. Then I've got some shrimp here. Now shrimp. Let's talk a little bit about shrimp. My preference would be rock shrimp, of course, because we're the Anodized Chef. But these are 4150 shrimp, and I took the liberty of peeling most of them ahead. And what we do is we take the skin off. They've got a little shell on them, and they're already deveined. And what we've done is taken a knife down here. And sometimes you can buy them like this too. You take a knife down, you score them, and there's a vein right in there. And sometimes it's dark, and that's their main digestive vein. So you want to pull that out of there and just dip it in water, and it comes right out. You can peel it and pluck it right out. But then once you cut it like that to devein it, the shell will come right off. And sometimes you get shrimp that have thick shells, and some of them have thin. But you can easily just peel it right off. And where this is going into a saute instead of like a fried shrimp, we're going to peel all the tail right off. So we'll take that off of there, and I'll just finish up doing the rest of these here so you can see and just watch the technique in doing it. But you can see that slice down the back there, and that's where I took that vein out. And that's what they call peeled and deveined shrimp. You can see that in the market when you buy them in the packages. It'll say that on top. But while I'm doing this, let's talk a little bit about sizes. Sometimes it looks like math on the bags of shrimp when you buy them, but what really is going on there is you'll see different sizes. Sometimes they say jumbo, extra jumbo, but look for the number, because there'll be 16-20 or there'll be 41-50, and what that means is that's how many shrimp there are in a pound. So when you go to buy it, you'll know these ones here that we're using today are 4150s, and this is a really good size for a shrimp scampi. So Bob, check that out. Bring that right in. That's a good size. Now it's going to shrink up a little bit when it cooks, but that's a pretty good size to go into a saute. So 4150s are good, and that's also one of the better values too, because you can get that for somewhere around $5 or $6 a pound here in New England. But that's why I always look for that too. But so that's the shrimp that we use, and it's very simple. You take the shells, and you can just throw the shells away unless you want to make a stock or something. You can put them aside. You make it a nice seafood stock or lobster stock. Those shells will go right in there and add flavor. We're just going to toss them out. And then to wrap up our ingredients here, I have a nice, about a cupful of chiffonade or chopped up spinach. That's the fresh cello spinach. And what that is, I don't like to use baby spinach because, not in this, because it doesn't cook up very well. and it doesn't offer as much nutrients. So I take this, and it's going to need a little bit of work. You're going to have to pluck the stem off a little bit, and you're going to have to take a knife to it. But in general, it'll be a much better for you. A lot more nutrients in that as well. I've got 1/2 of a sweet onion. You can use Vidalia if they're in season, if you can get them. And I've just julienne those. And then I've got a nice cup of cremini sliced mushrooms. Cremini is one of my favorite mushrooms. It's baby portobello mushrooms. And I just chopped those up. I'm going to throw those in the saute as well. And again, I'm adding those vegetables, some of those vegetables in there for nutrients and for flavor. And you might go to a restaurant and order a scampi and not see that in there. Or you might not see any tomato product in there. Some people think it's just a wine, garlic, and oil sauce, and that is the foundation of scampi, but we try to make it a little bit sexier by adding some nutrition, some flavor, and some color right into that. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let me wash my hands from that shrimp, and then we're gonna get started on the saute. Okay, so we've got our stick of butter here, and then we're gonna build the sauce, the foundation sauce, before we start to actually saute. So I've got the stick of butter melted, and to that I'm gonna add all of our other components for the sauce. We're gonna saute the herbs fresh, and we're gonna add the Asiago at the end too. But we'll start with a 1/4 cup of fresh minced garlic, and you know a 1/4 cup sounds like a lot, but that is scampi. That's what scampi's all about. So we're gonna get in there, and we'll get all that garlic out of there, and get that right in there. 1/4 cup right into that stick of butter. I'm also going to add about 1/2 cup of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil to this. And this is what we talked about in the beginning, is I want to cut that bad butter with some good cholesterol, extra virgin olive oil. I really should have done this before we started shooting. Sorry, Bob. All right, so I'm going to put about 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil in there, and again, that's going to improve the nutrition in the sauce. So then I've got the San Marzano tomatoes. I'm gonna put 1 whole tomato right in there, and I'm gonna put like probably about 3 tablespoons of juice, and that's gonna equate to probably about 1/4 cup of tomato product. And I'm gonna just break it up, and there's that word again, Bob. I'm just gonna break up the tomato with some tongs here, and just a little bit. The saute work will help to break it up as well. So we'll just do that. And then we're gonna add our 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese right to that. And then we're gonna add a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. And that can be eyeballed. It doesn't have to be exactly a tablespoon. We're just trying to bring some essence of lemon out into the stir fry sauce. So, and then I'm gonna put a tablespoon of the edge right on top. And you can put what in substitution? You know what. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just mix this up a little bit and see how this looks. Now at this point, this is basically going to be our finishing sauce. We're gonna saute over here in a little bit of olive oil, and we're gonna saute with some fresh herbs. And then we're gonna put this on at the end and toss the pasta right into it. That's our scampi sauce right there, that's the foundation. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get my pan fired up, and we're gonna add just an extra tablespoon of olive oil to that. We'll get that good and hot, and we'll get our saute going. So, we'll put this aside for now because we're going to use that at the end, like I said. So we'll take our fresh herbs here. I've got about 2 teaspoons of fresh parsley. We'll make sure all that gets in there. And we just want to kind of season that oil a little bit. 1/4 cup of chiffonade basil like we talked about earlier. We'll add that in there. And we're just going to put an essence to that the original olive oil to start with, because then what we're going to do is we're going to put our shrimp in there. And this is a 1/2 pound of the 4150s like we talked about. The 1/2 pound is enough. You could always save the other half and do this again, or you could do a different type of shrimp dish later on. So now that our oil is good and cranky, I'm going to add the shrimp. Now the shrimp don't take long because they're small. You'll see if you add them to hot oil, they'll start turning pink right away. So we're going to go ahead and get those veggies in there too. Add that onion, add the cremini mushrooms, and go ahead and add that spinach, because now all those nutrients are going to come out into that oil, and that's when that part of it becomes good for you. So we're just going to, all we want to do really is try to soften up the vegetables just a little bit and get the shrimp to start turning a little bit pink. The thing about mushrooms in a saute is, man, they can really draw up the oil. When you're cooking with them, they can really draw that oil right in. So, and when the shrimp start to turn a little pink, that's when we're going to add our finished sauce. And they're on their way. The great thing about this dish is this dish, start to finish, can be prepared in like 30 minutes. I can see this being a one of those quick meals where you can see. I did a little bit of work. I cooked the pasta ahead, but you can get home and just bang this out in short order. So I did cook the pasta ahead. I did peel some of that shrimp ahead. But in all honesty, we're only taking 10 minutes to do this finishing part here. So realistically, you can do this in about a half an hour. So shrimp. When you get the shrimp, it's usually frozen. In fact, it's always been frozen when I get it. So you got to make sure that you put it in the sink or defrost it slow on the bottom shelf in your fridge. So, all right, now we're going to add our sauce. Add this right to it. The reason why we want to add this at the end is because we've already added some cheese to it, and that cheese will stick to the bottom and just get really, really nasty. But now's the time. See that shrimp is nice and pink? Now's the time to add that. So let's move this all around here. Get that love through the whole thing. And then we're going to add our pasta. And just let that, see how clumpy and dry it is? Because now what's going to happen is it's going to draw up all that awesome flavor that we just put on there. Yeah, so like I was saying about the shrimp, when you buy it in the grocery store, it's going to come frozen. I've never seen it fresh, but that's okay because they've got a really great method on a boat of instantly freezing it when they catch it. When they catch them, they call it IQF, instant quick frozen, or individually quick frozen, but it is done instantly. And it's right there on the boat, so it's perfectly safe. And it's really, like I said, if you can find fresh shrimp, you're golden. But in this area, you really can't. So, like I said, just make sure you can put them in water right away. You don't want to put them in hot water though, because they'll start to cook. So, if you don't have the time to defrost them slow, then just run them under cold water, and you should be fine. So we're gonna give this a little bit of a toss here. Oh, the smells. Oh. So what I usually do is I'll take a piece of that noodle there, give it a taste. That's really good. The lemon's coming through. I'm getting the garlic. I'm even getting a little bit of the butter. But I'm going to add just a pinch of the edge because between the mushrooms and the pasta, they just kind of took up a lot of the any kind of salt flavor that we've had in there. So we're going to add just a little bit of the edge to bring it over the top. You don't want to add too much because we're going to finish it with my favorite cheese. So, all right, so this is done. Before the noodles start to stick, I'm going to shut this down, and I'm going to go ahead and start to plate things up. Before we plate up, I just want to add a little bit of white wine to this, just to kind of thin it down a little, because I noticed that pasta really did draw up a whole bunch of that sauce. So I added probably about a quarter cup of the house white wine that we're featuring on today's episode. And we're just going to kind of let that reduce down just for a second. We don't want to let it cook too much. But see, we don't want the sauce to be too dry either, so we just thinned it down just enough to kind of bring the flavors out. And we're going to cook it for just a second. And I will add just a little bit of cracked black pepper right to the top of that. And that's just because I like black pepper. And I'm going to go ahead and shut it down now because we don't want the shrimp to overcook either. But that sauce is just the right consistency, that wine cooked down just enough. So ideally what would be good is if you deglazed the pan right before we add the noodles, before we added the house sauce, we should have added some wine and deglazed it. That would have been the ideal technique, but that works too. I think the wine's going to come through a little bit stronger now that we added it late, and I'm perfectly okay with that. So, all right, so now let's go ahead and dish up. Oh yeah, baby. See, the 4150s are just the right size to put in a little saute. And these would be good if you wanted to do like an Asian stir fry, or if you wanted to do, these are a little bit small for skewers for the grill. You may want to go with a little bit bigger, 2130s, maybe 1620s, if you wanted to do something on a skewer. But when they're in the saute pan, these are perfect. So add a couple of lemon wheels, just like if they were going out in a restaurant, so they can squeeze the lemon wheels right over the top if they like it a little bit more lemony. Some fresh parsley to clean the palate. And I've got some nice, fresh baguette sliced bread. And then we're going to finish it with my favorite. We're going to add just about a quarter cup of Asiago cheese right on top. And that is shrimp scampi. And that's my version of shrimp scampi. You'll see it differently in different restaurants and whatever, but this is the way that I like to do it, and it's delicious. It's a huge hit in my house. So the featured wine that we're pairing today is the Sauvignon Blanc. It's Route 1, and it's a 2010 Sauvignon Blanc. And we've already sampled it along with the food. And the greatest thing about it is, that I find about it, is it's very, very fruity, it's very bright, it's very tropical. It's also got a lot of high acids. But the good thing about it is it cuts right through all the richness of that. It brings the lemon right forward in the Scampi. So it's going to be a great, great match with the dinner. So I would go with the Sauvignon Blanc, and if you could, go with the Route 1. And this one I find, it's because it's nice and bold, and that's what I like too. I like the bolder wines. See, I'm not a big fan of really soft, whites. I'm actually more of a red drinker, but this one actually stands up and says, hey, check me out. So with that being said, I want to thank you for checking us out. Check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/AnodizedChef. Become a fan, check it out. Also on Twitter, we have the show, which is Anodized Chef. You can follow me at the Anodized Chef on Twitter, and that's with the little @ sign before both of those. Or you can follow the producer, Bob, Robert_Sutton, and he's also on Twitter. He does a lot of wine talk on there too. So, or you can visit our website and check all that stuff out. It's anodizedchef.com. So thank you very much for joining us in our madness, magic, and mayhem. We will see you next time. Wow, that's bold, man. That's bold. That's good stuff right there. Super fruity.